Hello, it's a real pleasure to be here at CYFEST13 and to be exhibiting my work and speaking about my project Dark Skies, which is a meditation on darkness and on scale. My name is Patricia Olynyk and I am from the United States, born in Canada. I currently have an academic teaching position at Washington University in St. Louis, and I commute back and forth between St. Louis and New York in the United States. At Washington University, I am the Florence and Frank Bush Professor of Art, and I also have many courtesy appointments in other units at the university because I am usually working collaboratively with scholars and historians and industry specialists and technicians and people who occupy many different intellectual and scholarly territories, as well as people from the sciences. So the research university is a perfect context for me to produce my work. I'm here to talk to you today about Dark Skies and also to tell you a little bit about the history of my work and where my work is inspired and how I got started a little bit. So I'm very inspired by this ethos of collaboration and unity that came out of the Center for Advanced Visual Studies at MIT. In the 60s, the Center for Advanced Visual Studies was launched by none other than György Kepes, and this really grew out of a kind of popularization of complexity theory and theories of coexistence, for example, cybernetics. So when all of these ideas became very popularized, art design and architecture, particularly art and design, began to craft objects that really heightened the viewer's understanding of their presence within the world by way of these kind of heightened sensory experiences. So this is something I think that has really inspired my work. And so coming from that time, a lot of artists, Otto Pena, György Kepes, Frank Molina, a lot of artists were producing works with light. In fact, curator from Canada, Nina Shaglady, curated an exhibition, I think about 8 or 10 years ago at the Ludwig Museum in Budapest called The Pleasures of Light, and it was an exhibition of the work of Frank Molina and György Kepes that exhibited some of their most iconic light sculptures and light works. So Dark Skies, which is the artwork, the large-scale artwork on exhibition at Annenkirch for CYFEST13, is a multimedia, multisensory, large-scale work that is a collaboration with Axiomi in the United States, Sung-Ho Kim, and it's a piece whereby I also engaged sound designer Christopher Ottinger, and it was also exhibited in a slightly different form at the California Nanosystems Institute at UCLA and also at the Biobat Art Space at Brooklyn, New York. And it's a work that is inspired by a question that I have about what it means to no longer be able to observe the world around us. I'm very interested in the fact that light pollution, for example, completely obfuscates our view of the night sky. And what does this do to human consciousness when, first of all, we no longer have access to complete darkness, which we need for at the sort of DNA and cellular level just to live a healthy life. But what does it do to human consciousness when we can no longer observe the world around us? So the International Dark Skies Association and many other scientists and researchers have looked at the negative effects of obtrusive light in the world and the effects of this on our living patterns, our circadian rhythms, our feeding patterns, our sleep patterns, what happens to us at the cellular level. It's a complex set of issues and problems that we have because of this obtrusive light in the world. So I'll be talking about this work, Dark Skies, and what motivated it, which is this question: what does it mean for our consciousness and for us biologically when we no longer have access to the night sky? And so I'll start by showing some images of an exhibition that I had at the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C. a few years ago. And from that exhibition, you can see that there are both micro and macro images that I took from a transgenic lab at the University of Michigan through a grant from the Office of the Vice Provost for Research. And I began working with visualization techniques such as this one, where I'm using a scanning electron microscope to visualize microscopic forms that include sites of sensation on human and non-human bodies. So things that we sense with. So this would be tissue from the eye, it would be nasal epithelial cells, taste buds, which you'll see will play very prominently in the Night Skies piece, inner ear cochlea, and then of course a lot of creatures, including human creatures, that touch. And there are many more sites of sensation and many more ways in which we sense the world, and experts in this area say in proprioception say that there are many other ways in which we sense, which include gravity and temperature and barometric pressure. But for this project, I really just was really focusing, for the National Academy of Sciences project, was just really focusing on 5 senses. And I began to gather these scanning electron micrographs. And the one that really interested me the most was a taste bud, which you will see come up in the Dark Skies work later. So let's start by looking at a few night skies. And this is a night sky from New York City. And it's a very strong visual representation of what happens when we really can't see that far due to obtrusive city light. And aside from the loss of stars from view, studies show that light pollution destroys about 7% of smog-eating microorganisms, and so chemicals build up in these light environments, which would otherwise be consumed by biological microorganisms if it was dark. And this leads to a 5% jump in kind of wheeze-inducing ozone pollution during the day. So not having enough darkness and having all this light pollution actually has a very negative impact on our biological system. So the Dark Skies piece responds to both our biological and our psychological need for darkness and the disorienting effects of light on human and non-human life forms. And the International Dark Sky Association defines the state of our skies over urban areas as something called photopollution. And it's also called night glow, trespass, light clutter, obtrusive artificial light, and energy waste. So aside from, as I said, the obvious psychological impact, there's terrible biological impact for human and non-human life. So in 2014, there was a blackout. The city grid went down. This is in North America, in East North America, near Toronto. And you can see by these two images that the city sky which completely obliterates the Milky Way, you can see what the night sky looks like without this city light. And it's really dramatic. And there were people who saw the night sky for the first time because of this blackout. And it's not unlike the blackout that happened in '94 in Northridge, which is in Los Angeles, when a 6.7 magnitude earthquake crashed the power grid citywide as well. And these weird cosmic bodies in the sky had people so afraid that they were calling 911. And they were also calling the different observatories in the areas, and they were told not to worry, that what they were seeing for the first time was just the night sky and the Milky Way. But this is how disconnected humans have become from the environment and from the night sky due to urban living. So you can see the night sky over some of the destruction of the earthquake in '94 in Riverside. And then here is a scale called the Bordeal Scale. It's a 9-level numeric scale that measures night sky brightness. And you can see how all those different levels obliterate the night sky. There are, again, 9 of these scales. And here you can see the world map where you see every continent in darkness. So this is shot over a 24-hour period. And you can see the locations of the world that have most light trespass or light pollution. So my position was to try to create an artwork that somehow heightens your sensation to not only darkness, but to this really incredible cinematic moment on the 24-hour clock, and that is sundown. So what the piece shows is sundown happening over and over again, because this is a very heightened moment that we're really familiar with in cinema. You know, a lot of things happen when the sun goes down, and particularly in the genre of mystery or noir or even horror, when the sun goes down, there's a certain kind of fear or trepidation as darkness comes and nightfall comes. So it's a moment where humans are often feeling a certain kind of dread. But there are also groups and individuals in the world that are forming these groups where they're trying to live in absolute darkness for 1 week or 1 month periods. And it's a very disorienting experience at first, but there is a real desire to reconnect with darkness, and an understanding that we need to reconnect with darkness. So this is how the artwork starts. It reaches back to the archive I collected for the National Academy of Sciences exhibition, and here you're going to see the taste bud of a wild mouse. Why the taste bud of a wild mouse? Well, a wild mouse is a creature that, when the sun is going down and nightfall arrives, comes out. So here you have the taste bud of the wild mouse, and here you see an abstracted image of that wild mouse taste bud, and it's an image that was produced through the modeling software at Axiomi by Sung-Ho Kim. And here you see we further abstracted that taste bud to create this dimensional surface, because dark skies exists in 2 versions. It exists as a dual projection hitting a sculptural wall at a raking angle with a stereoscopic sound installation that goes with the work, kind of spatialized soundscape that goes with the work. And it exists as 2.0, which is what you will see in a few minutes. You'll see documentation of the work as it exists at Annenkirch for CYFEST13. So moving on, you see that we made a lot of different examples of the taste bud, the wild mouse taste bud. We're trying to use modeling systems, architectural modeling systems, to determine the height and the amount of relief that we need on the sculptural wall in order to build a good visual and sound environment. And here you see that we are also doing some testing of where the projectors would be and what the human shadows interrupting that artwork would look like at different distances from the surface of the wall, and varying based on how deep that wall is, how much of a relief that wall is. And here's another sample of that. And here's the wall actually being carved on a CNC router. So this artwork, 1.0, is a dual projection on a sculptural wall, and this is a 4 by 8 foot single tile being carved on a CNC router. And this was carved at Washington University in St. Louis. It was the largest work that was CNC routed in our facility there. And in fact, 2 of the 4 by 8 foot walls fit together to create an 8 by 8 foot wall. And this is the way the work exists as Dark Skies 1.0. And when you're in front of the work, if you interrupt one of the 2 projections, you seem to be sort of implicated or drawn into the artwork. You will in fact block, as you block one projection, the inside of your shadow, the shape of your shadow, will reveal only what is being projected from the second projector. So there's this real sense of being implicated or drawn into this interspecies world. And this also creates both a kind of an integration, but also a little bit of perhaps a kind of anxiety, because it's an integration into the unknown. So it creates a sense of being one with the sky, one with the world. And Sung-Ho Kim states that while producing the data sets for this digitally routed surface, that he imagined matter made of many particles in constant motion from which the scales of the universe would appear to emerge. And so this work also has a deep psychological effect on the viewer, because one cannot really understand one's bodily scale in relationship to what is being viewed. So at times the wall appears to be a microscopic form which renders us the scale of a giant, and at other times it seems to almost be an aerial view of the earth which renders us in a very far proximity from the surface of something, and at other times it appears to be something very large which renders our bodily scale into something that appears to be quite miniature. So again, this is the Dark Skies 1.0 with the sculptural wall intact, and here you'll see details of the multi-channel video projection on either raking angle of the piece. So you can see that it's vespertine or sundown sky on one side, and on the other side you can see that it's night sky with this Milky Way kind of waterfall. And the 2 soundtracks that go with this work are something that create a spatialized environment as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And here you will see a video of the Dark Skies work. And this is about 3 minutes long. And here we are at Annenkirch, and Annenkirch is where we are displaying Dark Skies 2.0. So my cinematographer and DP, Adam Hogan, photographed, actually videographed the Dark Skies piece in my studio a few weeks ago, and then created Dark Skies as a mirrored image for the installation at Annenkirch, where we projected this 26 feet wide, and where we still have the two soundtracks playing in stereo in the gallery at Annenkirch. And here it is, 26 feet wide, and you can see the Dark Skies. Actually, the whole dimensional wall has been filmed and incorporated into this. So the Dark Skies work has actually been projected onto this 26-foot wide screen in the stage area of the installation space, and it also has been projected onto the architecture at several different sites in Annenkirch. And the sound designer that played with my original soundtrack, which consisted of sound recordings that I took at Sundown during a residency at the Banff Centre for the Arts. So what you hear in the soundtrack are these very eerie sounds of creatures coming out at night. You can't really tell what they are. Some of them sound like very, very small, almost insects. Others sound like larger animals. And so Chris Olynyk did a special sound mix of all of these different elements, but he did a very special sound mixing for the stereoscopic sound, whereby the first soundtrack sonically articulates the ambiguous space between the micro and macro environments, echoing those that are actually depicted in the video. So for the field recordings that I captured, he mixed the small sounds, the sounds of birds and insects, and he actually slowed those smaller creature sounds down so that they would sound very big. And then he took the larger animal sounds and he sped them up. So he's really playing with a kind of confusion of our auditory capabilities, so that we are trapped in this kind of sonically ambiguous space when we listen to this soundtrack of Dark Skies. Here is another view of the installation at Annenkirch. And here, the terrific curator, Elena Gubanova, also wanted to project Dark Skies directly onto the architecture at the back of the exhibition main hall space, so that the walls, the architecture itself, seem to be coming alive. So here you have the Dark Skies scaled down, and on the other end of the Great Hall you have the piece blown up very large. So what's interesting about the piece, the last point that I'd like to make, is that the only way that you could see the night sky and the sundown, which are two distinctly different points in the 24-hour clock, the only way you can see this simultaneously is by way of technology. So the only way this work can exist in the way that it does is by way of technology. So this is also a testimony to the way that we reimagine the environment around us, and the way that we reimagine the way that we occupy the environment around us by way of technology. So that is my lecture on Dark Skies, and thank you.